The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Chapter 8. Rough hands grabbed me and lifted me off the dirt floor. Two strong beggars held me. Others pulled the stuffed man off the rope. One man tied the end of the rope into a hangman's noose. Soon I would be deader than the stuffed man. Everyone was cheering. To the beggars, my suffering was entertainment. The life of a beggar was very hard. They were treated cruelly by the people of Paris, so in return they were cruel to everyone who came into their city. Such thoughts raced through my mind as I made ready to die for the second time that night. My hands were tied behind my back. The noose was placed over my head. I looked pleadingly at the king of beggars, but he was not looking at me. A fat woman wearing a long skirt was whispering into his ear. "No, no," I heard the king tell the woman. "But you must give him a chance," the woman answered the king. "It is the law. Even beggars and thieves must live by some law." "That is true," the king agreed. He turned to the beggars and raised his hands. Everyone was instantly quiet. Then the king spoke. "The queen has reminded me that we have a tradition here. If any woman wants this man for a husband, he will be spared." My heart soared. The men in the room booed. Many of the women cheered. The king looked all around the room. "Well," he shouted, "does any woman here want this man?" The crowd parted, and 3 women walked up to me. They all looked at me closely. One woman had a scar on her face. Another had no teeth. The third was very fat and smelled like cheese. Old cheese. The woman with the scar reached up and opened my mouth. She closed one eye and looked inside. "His teeth are good," she proclaimed. Everyone laughed. The fat woman poked me in the ribs. "He is too skinny for me," she said. "Can you cook?" the woman with no teeth asked me. "Oh, not very well," I answered. She stared at me for a minute. "Well, you do have good teeth. Maybe you could chew my food for me." Everyone laughed at that but me. Hanging might not be so bad, I thought to myself. "Well," said the king, "he can't steal from a dummy, he can't cook, and he is too skinny. Doesn't anyone here want this man?" No woman spoke. "He is really not that ugly," the king said. "I am beginning to like him. There must be someone here who wants this man." Suddenly I saw a familiar face. It was Esmeralda with her goat. They were walking toward me. The crowd moved aside to let her pass. "Esmeralda," I shouted, "don't you know who I am?" The gypsy girl stared at me. Did she recognize me? Her goat trotted up to me and rubbed his horns on my legs. Esmeralda looked at me closely. She was deep in thought and did not answer me. "I was the one who tried to help when the hunchback grabbed you," I told her. Then she smiled. She remembered me. Esmeralda pulled her long dark hair back and leaned close to look at me. Her eyes widened. "Yes," she said at last, "you are the man who tried to save me." "Yes," I cried, "yes, yes, it was I." "And the hunchback threw you into a pile of garbage," she said. The beggars all laughed long and hard at that. "Please," I begged her, "rescue me and I will take care of you forever." Speaking to Esmeralda, the king said, "Do you want him, lass?" Esmeralda thought for a few seconds. Then she nodded her head. "Done," cried the king. "Release him." Suddenly the beggars began to untie my hands. "If Esmeralda will have him," the king announced, "then the writer is one of us." Everyone cheered at the king's words, though I was sure that some of the beggars would have enjoyed a hanging just as much. Esmeralda stood at my side, and people began to pat me on the back. "You are one of us now," they cried. "We stick together and take care of our own." A group of beggars lifted me on their shoulders. Another group lifted Esmeralda as well. The beggars all cheered louder. We were carried around the huge chamber. Everyone greeted us with smiles. I had been rescued for the second time that night.